Fresh images of 3I, Atlas, the third interstellar object ever detected, have reignited humanity's sense of awe and unease about the cosmos. Unlike any fragment of ice or rock drifting through the solar system, this object brought with it something far stranger, its final transmission. When that signal broke through, it was immediately apparent that it was not noise, not the chaotic hum of space or the fractured pulse of a crumbling body. It was deliberate. Its structure was too precise to be mistaken for anything else. For months, experts argued over the anomalous data streams associated with the object. Were they simple misreadings, atmospheric distortions, or the quirks of imperfect instruments? But as the transmission unfolded, doubt melted into certainty. This was no ordinary wanderer. 3I, Atlas was designed. The revelation marked the climax of years of speculation. From the moment it was first spotted, streaking into the solar system from beyond the heliopause, its behavior had been suspicious. The object moved in ways no comet should, shifting its course with subtle adjustments, radiating frequencies in strangely ordered bands. Some scientists dismissed these as coincidences, while others whispered of artificiality. When the final transmission arrived, no one could hide behind skepticism. The message did not plead, nor did it greet. It was not an introduction but a warning. It was a record of catastrophe, carried across unimaginable distances, preserved until the moment the object began to die. This was not merely an astronomical curiosity, it was confirmation of humanity's greatest fear. The galaxy was not empty, but haunted. The transmission came in bursts, triggered by the object's own decay, a kind of fail-safe that activated as 3I, Atlas approached its end. Every detail of its construction suggested purpose. Whoever had built it wanted the message to survive, even if their civilization did not. Embedded within the signal were maps of collapse, sequences of destruction on scales that defied comprehension. Entire stellar neighborhoods erased. Worlds reduced to silence. This was not the familiar chaos of nature, the collapse of stars or the dance of rogue black holes. It was patterned, coordinated, almost intentional. What unsettled humanity most was not what the transmission showed, but what it implied. The forces described were vast, sweeping through systems in a way that left no survivors. The senders had not asked for help. They had not begged for salvation. They had simply declared a truth: survival is conditional, and those conditions may lie far beyond the reach of even the most advanced civilizations. If they could not endure, what hope did Earth have? Scientists studying the message were struck by its universality. It used prime numbers, repeating intervals, and visual correspondences to ensure that any technological species could understand. This was not a message tailored to humans, it was meant for anyone, anywhere, across time itself. The diagrams of star systems were not mapped to their present arrangements but to alignments long past, suggesting that the senders had fixed themselves in history, anchoring their place in the cosmos before vanishing. In their precision was a mournful acknowledgement. They had known the universe, and they had known its cruelty. For those who decoded it, the realization was devastating. The silence humanity had long pondered was not evidence of solitude, but of absence. Civilizations had existed, but they were gone. The galaxy was not a vast expanse waiting for voices to rise. It was a graveyard, scattered with faint echoes of those who had already perished. The final transmission of 3I, Atlas was not a discovery of life, but of death. Even more chilling was the possibility that the catastrophe it described was ongoing. The models embedded in the message did not end with ancient voids. They extended outward, projecting waves of destruction spreading like ripples through the galaxy. If correct, then the same forces that had erased the senders might still be moving, their reach expanding toward new victims. Humanity, in listening, might have caught not just a warning from the past, but a glimpse of its own future. The emotional weight of the signal was unmistakable. Though encoded in mathematical clarity, the rhythm of the bursts carried a pulse, a cadence some argued echoed the beat of a living heart. Whether intentional or coincidence, it gave the data a haunting intimacy. It was no longer just information, it was remembrance. A final scream launched into the void so that somewhere, someday, someone might know they had existed. In its last act, 3I, Atlas became more than an object. It became a relic. Perhaps it was never a comet at all, but an engineered vessel, a monument built to drift across the stars until it could deliver its burden. And now, in dissolving into fragments, it had become a symbol. A reminder that even across light years, mortality cannot be escaped. The transmission gave no solutions, no strategies for survival. It offered only recognition. It did not teach humanity how to resist, only to remember. What lingered after the signal faded was silence. Yet that silence was heavier than any sound, for it was filled with dread. Humanity now knew that the cosmos was not a neutral stage, but a perilous expanse. Every probe, every telescope, every attempt to expand into the stars would now carry the weight of that knowledge. The universe was vast, yes, but it was also hostile. And if civilizations greater than ours had already fallen, then one day, so might we. 3I, Atlas, in its final transmission, had given humanity not hope, but inevitability. When the truth finally emerged, it hit with the force of certainty. If the forces noted in the last transmission still operated, Earth was no mere observer of calamity. It was marked as a future target. This realization brought a sharp sense of dread, turning the transmission from an artifact into what many feared was a countdown. Humanity longed for wonder from the stars, perhaps companionship or wisdom. Instead, it received a warning that resonated like a distant bell tolling. The response across cultures was immediate and polarized. Some welcomed the discovery as evidence that humanity was part of a grand cosmic network, despite its frayed nature. Others fell into nihilism, believing that if even the most advanced civilizations could be wiped out, human efforts were ultimately in vain. Yet, beneath the surface disagreements, one truth united all viewpoints. History had shifted. The universe was no longer a blank canvas for human advancement. Instead, it was a scarred expanse filled with memories of civilizations that had once tried, and failed, to endure. In the scientific realm, an urgent debate erupted, unlike anything seen in generations. Was the catastrophe caused by natural or artificial means? Some proposed astrophysical theories, waves of gamma-ray bursts, chains of rogue supernovae, or black hole migrations. Each scenario was terrifying in its own right. But the idea that the destruction was intentional, orchestrated by a vast intelligence, was even more chilling. If the vanished civilization had been hunted, then no adaptive strategy could ensure survival. While humanity might withstand blind nature, there was no defense against intention, patience, or malice. The signal itself revealed insights about both the senders and their fate. It featured redundancies, self-correcting codes, and universal markers, reflecting a desperate desire to endure in memory. Even in their last moments, they fought against being erased. This refusal to vanish was deeply human, showcasing the spirit of persistence, even in the face of doom. However, that tenacity only intensified the sense of loss, indicating whatever had destroyed them was overwhelmingly beyond comprehension. A particularly devastating aspect of the transmission was its lack of solutions. There were no strategies, tools, or guidance for resistance, only accounts of collapse. It served as a chronicle, not a manual. This absence hinted at something more awful than the catastrophe: inevitability. Perhaps attempts at survival had been made, only to fail, or perhaps survival had never been an option. The universe, vast and unforgiving, appeared less as a frontier and more like a labyrinth filled with insurmountable traps. Yet, within this inevitability lay a paradox. By sending their message, the lost civilization affirmed the importance of communication. They chose to reach out, to create meaning from despair, ensuring that someone would know they had existed. Through this act, they passed on a unique inheritance. Humanity was given awareness instead of survival, a torch of memory. With it came immense responsibility. To forget the transmission would mean erasing those vanished beings a second time. To ignore it would mean stepping blindly into the dangers they had attempted to identify. Once the object carrying the transmission, 3I, Atlas, fell silent, the significance of its delivery intensified. Although its physical form disappeared, its data was preserved globally, immortalized in archives. The ensuing silence resonated louder than the message itself, filled with the realization that humanity had not received companionship but rather finality. The cosmos had spoken not in conversation but in epitaph. The message was dynamic, unfolding like a complex archive, revealing different interpretations based on the tools and viewpoints employed. Linguists discovered rhythmic patterns, while astronomers found celestial maps embedded in harmonic ratios. It seemed designed to resonate with any intelligence capable of decoding it, surpassing cultural and biological boundaries. The temporal layering introduced another dimension, depicting not just the end but the gradual decline of a civilization, thriving worlds, vibrant stars, and then silence. It mirrored Earth's own vulnerability, warning that collapse rarely occurs suddenly but creeps forward slowly, one step at a time until it becomes unstoppable. Symbolic layers also emerged, both abstract and metaphorical. One sequence spiraled inward, leaving a singular repeating pulse that looped endlessly. Mathematicians interpreted this as entropy, while artists saw memories striving against oblivion. Such interpretations suggested the senders infused their final message with both science and artistry, an effort to share the essence of their existence beyond just their demise. Ecological motifs added additional depth, embodying growth, peak, and decline. These hinted at the understanding that civilizations ascend and descend similarly to organisms, bound to local and cosmic cycles. Engineers marveled at the transmission's sophistication, its resilience against time's decay. It represented a triumph of design, with knowledge encoded to withstand corruption over eons. However, the bitter irony was evident. They preserved their message but not themselves. Perfect record-keeping held little value when survival was unattainable. The signal became both a testament to human brilliance and a bleak reminder